Hi, everybody. I have another friend from Down Under on the podcast today. I'd like to introduce Meredith. She's with us. It is morning for her, evening for me, and she is going to chat with us a little bit about her journey. So, Meredith, thank you so much and welcome. We appreciate having you on. We're
Thank
grateful
you,
to hear.
Melissa. Thanks for having me.
We're really excited to hear from you today. Why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, your story?
So I am a nutritionist. I'm a women's health nutritionist, and I treat mainly women with endo. I do have endo myself, and I'm also a yoga teacher as well. Normally I teach in a studio here in Brisbane, or in a couple of studios, but at the moment, not teaching so much with people given the pandemic, but I am still teaching online. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing.
Well, thank you for that. And I bet you're going to have a lot of great insights for us once we get through your story about maybe nutrition, some yoga poses for our listeners and our watching audience that might help with their endo pain. So,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
well, I always like to start from the top. So why don't you tell me just a little bit about, when your period started? Did you start to have pain early on? And really the beginning of your story with endo?
Yeah. So look, I think I was actually only diagnosed in 2013, I think it was. But I actually think I had it for a lot longer. So well before that, like when I was a teenager. But, I had no idea, like many people, I had no idea what endometriosis was. I just tried not to complain about it. And then it was sort of, really, like, I used to get a lot of pain. And I remember I went to the doctor, and he just said, "Here, take the pill," and which is
How old were you? Was this like middle school or elementary school?
yeah. So I was like 16 when I went to the doctor,
Okay.
and yeah, so I was 16, and I just thought that there was something not right because my periods were so heavy, it was so painful,
Were you
and
missing
yeah.
school?
Um, Look, I wasn't so much. I think but I would just try and grin and bear it, which was, probably not. And I remember there was time I was working a part-time job as well, actually at Target, like while I was, at school. And I remember I was working, and I said to my boss, "I'm getting these stabbing pains." And she just made a joke of it and said, "Oh, you probably just need to go to the toilet." And she thought it was really funny.
Oh,
And because it was like pain in the rectum area. And now I realize what it was. It was endo, but I was in severe pain. Like there were times where I just had to like sit down in the toilet, like go and lock myself in the toilet and sit down, because I was going to pass out. So
did you at this point, were you like this is obviously when you went to go see this doctor when you were 16, but
yeah.
were you telling like your family, like something's off, I just don't feel right, I have these really bad pains, and everyone was just like, this is kind of normal for your period?
Pretty much. It was pretty much dismissed by everyone that I spoke to. I really only mentioned it to my mum. And as I mentioned, I told my boss when I was working in my part-time job, and she laughed, basically. So, yeah, so didn't really and look, I mentioned it to a few other like different doctors, but no one, it was pretty much dismissed then, like for years after that. And I just left it. And look, the pill, actually for me, the contraceptive pill kept things, I guess it sort of band-aided it for me, like all my symptoms reasonably well. But then, I was in my 30s in 2013.
Wait, I
And
want to back up. I'm sorry. I want to back
yeah,
up. Um, So you said the pill helped mask the symptoms a little bit. Besides, it sounds like you had long periods, painful cramps, and then also just like stabbing pain and maybe even in the rectum. Was there
Mm.
anything else, any other symptoms that you had that you could maybe call out for people who are listening? Because, endo just manifests itself in so many different ways, and the symptoms are just so different for everybody. Is there anything else you remember before you went on the pill?
Look, mainly for me, it was mainly pain. I had stabbing pains in my rectum, like around that area. I had, so they were the main symptoms, heavy periods, like blood clots. And I would get fatigue, like fatigue has been and sort of an ongoing symptom for me. Just really quite fatigued at certain times. Like didn't feel like I had the stamina that a lot of people have. So, and then the other symptoms that went along with that were also gut symptoms. So I would get really bloated, so get, endo belly, but it wasn't just endo belly. It was, food sensitivities. And I didn't actually even realize at the time. It's just, I remember a friend of mine saying to me, oh, Meredith, you look like you're pregnant. She's like, what's going on? And it's just like, and I think at the time I just dismissed it. And I was like, oh, this is just me. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is my normal life. And then, so it's at 16, you start taking the pill, and does it help lighten the period and reduce your pain? And are you on the same pill then for almost 15 years?
No, I wasn't. So I didn't stay on that pill. I came off it. So it did help for quite a while, but then I came off it. I came off the pill in my 30s. And that's when I was wanting to, I was thinking, like it might be time to come off the pill. But I started to get breakthrough bleeding. So, so I started to get breakthrough bleeding. So I was bleeding even though my period wasn't due with my, being on the pill. Not that you have a real period when you're on the pill. I just started bleeding constantly. And, so it was like the pill had just stopped working for me. Yeah. So...
Were you still, when you were on the pill, so things got better, but did you still have like GI symptoms and or painful? Were your periods still maybe not as bad, still painful?
It just started to get progressively worse. So everything started to get progressively worse. Like it kind of band-aided it for quite a few years. And then it just all started to go horribly wrong. So it was like, pain. I started to get breakthrough bleeding, blood clots, fatigue. My gut symptoms were getting worse. It was just, all starting to go downhill.
And at this time, are you putting anything together that this is all related with your period? Or were you just like, gosh, something is off? Like, maybe the period part was one part, but the GI and the gut health and all of that was something separate?
Yeah, I had no idea. So here I am, in my 30s, and I'm like, this is something is weird. Like, I don't think this is right. I went to, then there I go again, back to my GP, my doctor, just to sort of say, I don't think anything is, I think there's something wrong. And it was more about my gut health, actually, that I was sort of more concerned about. And I was told over and over again, you're fine, you're perfectly healthy, there's nothing wrong with you. And then I was like, you know what? No, you're not right. Like there is something wrong. And that's when I started to push back. And, but it took years. It actually took years. I went to a gastroenterologist. I had like all kinds of investigations done. I ended up seeing a gynecologist who told me, they couldn't see anything wrong. This is a gynecologist. And then eventually they sent me on to another specialist. And then finally as soon as she spoke to me, this specialist, she said, I think you have endometriosis. And that was the first time, and she didn't even, do a laparoscopy. She just said, I think you have endometriosis, but we need to go in and have a look. And yeah, I was pretty shocked and
Right. And had you ever even heard that word before? I mean, when she said that, did you even understand what that meant?
Well, I didn't understand what it meant, but I knew that there was a girl who worked at somewhere like I had worked previously, and she called in sick a lot. And apparently it was because of endometriosis. And I just dismissed it at the time. I'm like,
Sure.
oh yeah, come on, like periods aren't that bad, like,
Right. You're like, mine are way worse than this.
Yeah, so, but yeah. So that's the only time I'd heard of it.
Yeah. Were you off the pill now at this point when you're starting to see, okay, so you went off, and then when you went off, did things just kind of really start to go downhill for you?
It went completely haywire. Like my symptoms just went, it's like my body was just like, just completely lost the plot by that stage. Yeah. And I was not well. I was extremely unwell. Yeah.
Okay. So then you meet the specialist who says you might have endometriosis. What do you do next after that?
Yeah. So she then said, look, we have to go in and do a laparoscopy. And she did the laparoscopy, and I was terrified. I'd never had any kind of surgery or any health issues before. I was absolutely terrified. And then it was meant to be a very short, quick procedure. And after the procedure, I saw her, and she said, you are a mess. And she's just said, she said, I tried to sort of, go in and just see, how everything was. And yeah, she just said, it's severe. It's really, really severe. She said she couldn't even, she couldn't do anything, basically. She just said she said it was just such a mess. She had to just try and back out and close me up and everything. And then she sent me on to someone else because she said it was too much for her to deal with. So
well, but I do respect at least she didn't try to deal with it when she knew she didn't have the skill set to deal with it.
Exactly.
Now, have you Googled endo at this point? Are you like, what does this mean? Like, it's a mess. Like, did you Google it? Or did you find some groups where what were you doing in this time?
Around this time I became so unwell. I was in, the pain is, I can't even describe the pain. I was calling this specialist saying, there's something you have to do for me. Like I was on the floor just crying, and it was like, I can't even explain. It was horrific.
And it was every day at this point. Every day you're starting to feel sick. How old are you at this point, roughly?
So I was I think it was like in my 30s, like mid-30s.
Mid-30s,
something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so she was sort of saying to me, trying to help me. And then so I was really sick, and I was starting to look up and try and find resources on the internet, but it was very, even back in 2013, which wasn't that long ago, there really wasn't that much. There was a little bit, but it wasn't sort of telling me what I didn't already know, or what I hadn't heard from the doctor. So
sure.
Oh
my goodness. So then you're not well at all, and now you have another specialist that you're talking to, and what happened with that?
So he's a renowned surgeon in Australia, the surgeon that I went to see, and he told me he got another specialist who specializes in internal ultrasound, to do an internal ultrasound and then report back on what they've found to him. And he said, he basically said that, I had severe endometriosis. There was bowel involvement, and he would need a bowel surgeon in with him. And then it was a matter of actually, finding a time to get into this private hospital with these two surgeons. And I had to wait like I don't know, it was like over 6 months. I had to wait to have surgery, and I just said to him, I just said to him, I can't wait that long. Like, I can't, you know, you need to bring this forward.
Right.
And he was just like, and he said, yeah, he would try, but then he couldn't tee up a time or work out a time with the bowel surgeon. So it just I just ended up having to wait. And so, you know, during that time, I thought, look, I'm going to do what I can for my own health. And I thought, and then I realized I started to play around with my diet, and I started to realize, and I started to do sort of gentle yoga and things like that. And I started to realize that that's when I put the connection between diet and my symptoms and things like that. So I started to sort of educate myself, and I became connected with a lot of different groups, started up a social media account. And then I started to realize that my symptoms could improve naturally as well. Yeah. So
what were some of those changes that you made?
So the first changes that I made were cutting back on alcohol. So that was a big one. So I wasn't drinking a lot, you know, like I didn't have a drinking problem or anything, but you know, I'd come home from work every night and I would drink like a few glasses of wine and things like that. So it wasn't great. Like, and also, you know, I just started to eat more whole foods, and I also started a low FODMAP diet because I had gut issues. So that I noticed that all really started to help. And, you know, that sort of endo belly that I was getting and I'd had for years, that started to subside. So, and then I also started to work, I had an integrative doctor who was like also a nutritionist. I saw a naturopath, got acupuncture. I just really started to explore different modalities to see what worked for me. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's very helpful for people who are listening, especially during this time of COVID where, you know, surgery is not happening in many places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you really, you know, I learned that, you know, I mean, surgeons are great at what they do, but I mean, endometriosis, what I learned really is that endometriosis needs more than that. It's not just about surgery and hormonal treatment. It needs a faceted approach.
It's a systematic disease. It's systemic. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a tongue twister getting that out. But it took me a long time to realize that too. I thought, I'll just have surgery and I'll be great. But it's a management. You have to manage it, really.
Yeah.
And I feel like that isn't talked about enough. I think that's a very good point. You know, I think people think I'm going to get the surgery, I'm going to be fine. But even if you get surgery, you still have to manage it before, after, during, all of it.
Absolutely. Because I mean, it can really, endometriosis sensitizes your nervous system. And so, you know, you get so attuned to pain that even after surgery, you know, you can still experience pain. So
well, that's good. So you learned all that, you did all that, and then the surgery comes.
Yes. Okay. So then I had my second surgery, and that was full on. That was I don't think even my specialist he really only does endometriosis surgery, like that's, you know, what he's known for. He it ended up being a 6.5 hour surgery. They had to remove part of my bowel. And he just said it was just everywhere. Like he said I was one of the worst cases he'd ever seen. So it was stage 4 deep infiltrating endo. He said, it was on my bowel, you know, it was kind of everywhere. But he said as well, what he didn't realize is that it was all over my ureter, which is the structure that, you know, joins the kidney to the bladder. And he said my left ureter was completely blocked and my left kidney was nearly dead, basically, so non-functioning. And so he was like, if he had have known that, he would have had a urologist on board in the team to help try and save my kidney. And he was like, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to have to go back in for surgery.
Oh no.
And so after this surgery, like I was in hospital for a week. I ended up in ICU and for like quite a few days. And yeah, my ICU experience was horrific. But I won't go into that. So normally, yeah, I think people are amazing in ICU and you get well looked after, but I didn't have a great experience. But I don't want to scare people by saying that because, and look, my case as well was quite unique. Most people don't end up going into ICU. So
no, but it's okay. And you can't, I don't want to scare people ever either when listening to the podcast, but it's okay to share your story too. And, you know, these are the realities, unfortunately, of what happens. And no, it's probably a minor percentage that happens to, but it's part of your journey. So
So then so that surgery happened, and then 6 months later I went in and had my ureter reimplanted into my bladder, which look, there was about 25% function left in my left kidney. I'm not sure what it's like now. I haven't had any checks on it, but I feel like maybe soon it will be time to go and get things checked again. But yeah, so I had basically one functioning kidney left, and that was my last surgery.
How are you dealing with all this? I mean, you find out you have this word, endometriosis, you do a little research on it, then you have this long surgery, and the doctor comes out and he's like, bowel resection, kidney, this, that. Are you just like, oh my, you had no, I mean, did you wake up from the surgery and like, I have no idea that this could do this?
I think I was in a lot of shock, and I was starting to get quite angry about it, that I had been misdiagnosed for so long. And that's when I just started to get a little bit angry, and I decided that I would start to empower myself and start to learn as much as I could and connect with other people. And that's when I started my social media, you know, my Instagram account, and I just started sharing and talking about, you know, periods and things like that, and even on just my personal Facebook account, because I didn't care. I was just like, everybody, you all need to know this is what's happening, and I don't actually care if you don't like what I've got to say, but I just started sharing.
Good for you.
About it.
Good.
Yeah. And so and that was from there, that's when I was like, you know, I was working in corporate world, and then I left my corporate world behind, and I started studying a short course in nutrition. And I became absolutely fascinated with nutrition from there, because I was always a foodie. And then, you know, when I realized how much diet improved my health, that's when, and then from there I really, you know, got into yoga, and I found like yoga was really supportive, like really great. And also nutrition. And then, then I started studying nutrition, and the rest is history. And here I am.
Well, I mean, that's a lot to go through. Absolutely. And it changed your life. I mean, you started to study nutrition, yoga, because of everything that you've learned from it, which is incredible. When was that last surgery?
The last surgery was in 2014.
Okay. So how are you feeling from 2000? You had a lot of surgeries back to back to back. So I'm sure your recovery process was long.
Yeah, it was. Look, it probably took a few months, but I've been pretty good actually since then. So the main thing I've been working on, I don't really get much pain anymore. I really, my health is pretty good, like comparatively, like it's pretty good. The main thing, I did a lot of work on my gut and have been really focused on my gut health.
So with your period, you don't get hardly any pain now?
No, not really. No.
That's amazing. Okay. So we are ready to hear all of your tips and tricks, and, you know, what did you do to help with your gut, and obviously you're a nutritionist and yoga teacher. I'd love to talk just a little bit about what you do personally or recommend for clients that have endo or pelvic pain or pain with sex.
Yeah, look, I just want to say that, you know, I'm not cured of endo, and and diet doesn't cure endo. But, I think that for me, it's been a combination of surgery, having a really good surgeon, and also, diet and understanding what works for me. And just bringing all of that together. So that has really helped, manage my symptoms, my health quite well. So, so what I did was, after my final surgery, I went to an integrative GP. I'm not sure what you'd call them over in the States. So it's
similar, like a naturopath. Yeah. Naturopath.
Like a naturopath, but he was an actual doctor, well, I guess anyway.
He's like a MD or a DO, but he practices more of natural medicine.
Yeah, more functional and holistic approach. So I went to see him and I said, look, I've had all these gut issues and this has been going on for a very long time and it's time to get to the bottom of it. And so I then started to connect my gut issues with endo. And so from all the reading and research that I've been doing, I was like, okay, so there is actually a connection there. And now what's interesting is that there's more and more research coming out now that shows actually, yes, your gut health is actually related to, it's all linked to endometriosis. So there is some quite a bit of research coming out on that. So basically what I did was I went to him and he just did a whole lot of testing with me just to try to get to the root cause. So that's what I was trying to understand, is what is driving this, like what are some of the factors. And two of the key things that I found out was that I had SIBO. So I don't know if you've heard of SIBO, so small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So SIBO is, just for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's believed that SIBO is the underlying cause of majority of cases of IBS. So I was previously told, and many people get told, oh, you've just got IBS. And IBS isn't necessarily a diagnosis. It's just a collection of symptoms. So it can be, like bloating or abdominal pain, or you can get constipation, diarrhea, those sorts of things. And so I found out I had SIBO. And so then I just started on a whole regimen of taking antibiotics but also I took herbal antimicrobials, and I went on a really quite a strict diet. And so look, what actually happened with that is that I didn't end up clearing SIBO. And I think the reason for that is that, well, we don't completely understand it, I believe, is it because of all my adhesions. I think they're all over my intestines, because I've got severe endo, and it's changed the way my gut functions. It's actually changed. I've had scans done and certain studies done with a gastroenterologist, and he's basically told me that the shape of my intestines would look like they had been altered. So, food most likely is not going through there all that easily, which means, food can get sort of hang out in there for too long, and then it ferments from the bacteria that's in there, which causes the bloating and everything. And so what I worked out was, rather than continuously going through these regimens trying to kill the bacteria, is I just worked out a diet that really suited me. And I just support my health with, I really manage my stress levels. I practice a lot of yoga, and I'm really cautious around my stress levels. I've noticed that's a really big factor in my gut health. And I also take certain supplements which support my gut health. I take, a prebiotic every day, which helps my gut. So I've just sort of found out over time what works for me. And that's,
What are some of the foods that are in your diet, that you're still doing now, today, that work for you, or maybe even easier? What did you remove?
So what I removed was, I hardly drink any alcohol anymore. So alcohol is a big thing. And really, so I've really removed processed foods. So I rarely eat processed foods anymore. I don't eat very much red meat. So I might have red meat about once a week. So I'm not, vegetarian or anything like that. So that's really, so it's really now I just eat like a whole foods diet.
So do you still do
Yeah.
dairy and gluten?
No, so I have removed gluten. Yeah, so that was another one. Forgot to mention that one.
That's okay.
I still, yeah.
It's a big, I was like, wait, if you're eating gluten, this is going to make so many people happy on this podcast, because
No.
some people can eat it and be okay, but it doesn't work for me either.
No, so I removed gluten. I don't look. I have to say I love cheese, and so I was like, can't cut that out completely. How can I eat it? So what I do is I have goats and sheep's milk.
Okay.
So I drink all plant-based milk, so always like calcium enriched plant-based milk, so things like almond milk or those sorts of things. But sometimes I'll have I'll keep some goat's cheese in the fridge, and if I feel like a fix of goat's cheese, I'll have that in there. So I still eat eggs. Okay. What else can I tell you? What I think that's really, they're the main things. Yeah.
And how do you, this is just personal question because nutrition as well, but I also had a bowel resection too. And I personally cannot process vegetables the same way. I cannot do raw vegetables. Like I mean, if I do, I'm just like, I blow up like a balloon. I have to eat them cooked. I don't know. Have you found that at all?
Look, not so much raw. Look, raw vegetables, raw foods are more difficult to digest.
Yeah.
So often when I'm working with endo patients, I will make sure that actually I will probably encourage them to eat more slow cooked foods. It is much easier to digest. So so definitely I would say for sure. But also I think it's worth one thing that really helps is doing a food diary and seeing what trying to work out what's actually causing it, because it could be certain types of vegetables too, like things like FODMAPs, like veggies that are high in FODMAPs, like cauliflower and things like that. So
Brussels sprouts, which I love so much.
Yeah,
so good.
Okay,
that's very, very helpful for sure. I know a lot of times we talk about, diet on this podcast. It probably comes up every single episode, but it unfortunately really is a factor. And same, I had one glass of wine this Sunday, and it's probably the first glass of wine I've had in like 6 months, because as time started to go on and I was getting sicker and sicker, like you, like every day, the thought of alcohol made me sick to my stomach. So there was no way I was able to drink it. And I really do enjoy like a nice glass of wine. So I try to treat myself here and there, just make sure I'm extremely hydrated. And that's probably something we should talk about too, is how important hydration is. And I'm sure, coming from your point of view, it's very important.
Yeah, it is. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Look, there's, the rule of thumb is about 2 liters of water a day, but it depends what you're doing, like what the climate is like that you're living in and how much exercise you do. You should, because it's going to help with your digestion. It helps, even mild dehydration causes fatigue. But also, in women with endo have got fatigue anyway, 9 times out of 10. So, but also water, staying hydrated will help you with your gut health, and gut health is super important, and digestion is super important, so you can be eliminating all this food that you're eating, because your liver needs to process it and remove like any toxins and, for instance, estrogen and things like that, because estrogen fuels endo. So water is really important for your gut to be working properly.
Yeah. Is there any other supplements or like digestive enzymes or anything like that you think could help people who are potentially listening that just their gut feels out of whack?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I won't share brands because I mean, the
Sure.
brands that I use are practitioner only anyway. So, I mean, they won't be able to get them, and they're in Australia. They're Australian made too, so it won't help everybody. But I really like digestive enzymes. So if you are struggling with digesting food, digestive enzymes can help as well. And look, there's lots of things that can help, but I'll just try and name just a few things.
Sure,
um,
sure.
the other thing that I really like is a type of like soluble fiber or prebiotic. So there's two kinds that I think can be quite helpful. One of them is called PHGG. Or partially hydrolyzed guar gum. And it's an insoluble fiber, and it's a type of prebiotic, and it's been found to be really helpful with people who've got IBS, but also people who have SIBO.
Okay.
So it's really great. Even if you have diarrhea or constipation, it's quite helpful. But there's also one that's been used for many years by naturopaths, which is slippery elm. Which you might have heard of, but it's quite protective and nourishing for the gut as well. So, and again, slippery elm can be helpful. It kind of tastes like dirt though, but so it's not great. But it's really nice for the gut for constipation or diarrhea as well. So, and certain probiotics, like certain strains of probiotics, can be helpful too. So,
Right.
two strains that come to mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say two strains of probiotics that come to mind. I can't remember the full name because they always have a few numbers at the end, but there's two strains. One of them is called Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and another strain called Lactobacillus plantarum. And they're both quite helpful for gut issues and IBS, I've found.
Okay, that's great. It's super helpful information. Thank you. Yeah, and I know a lot of this can be overwhelming. So you can just try one thing at a time. You don't have to do all of this in one day. This is many years of testing and experience and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work.
And honestly, like the patients I see, often they're taking like 10 different supplements, and it's honestly, it's too much. Like you're really better off just doing a couple of more targeted things, and then you really know what's working for you as well. And it can be another source of stress to be having to take all these different supplements, and it kind of overloads your body. It's just just choose a few that are specific to your needs and go with that, I think. Yeah,
I think that's really great advice. Okay. Is there any yoga poses that we can do when we're in really bad pain? Maybe like down dog or child's pose, anything that you want to recommend on the yoga spectrum?
So for yoga, I think, like you said, a child's pose is really, really nice. It's very soothing and very introspective pose. But what I'd suggest is actually getting some pillows. I use a bolster, but if you don't have a bolster, use cushions or something to put under your belly or under your chest, so you can really feel nice and supported. So that's a really nice one. There's so many good poses. Another one that comes to mind is cat-cow, which is, where you're on all fours, like in a tabletop position. And you just sort of, you open through the chest, lift the tailbone, and then arch through the spine, like rounding the spine. And you just sort of alternate and move with your breath. It's really nice. Like if you're in pain and you really don't feel like moving, that could be a way to move that's not going to cause you too much pain. That's another one that's quite nice too.
That's great. Yeah. And you guys can Google these, anyone who's listening or watching, and there'll be 1,000 videos, I'm sure, of both of these poses.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you want to add or any other tips, tricks?
Yeah, look, I think it's, one thing I want to say is, I think it's really about, there's so many different diets out there, and there's no one, like people sort of, from what I've noticed is people sort of become quite focused on one specific diet, but there really isn't one diet. It's, you know, you can follow general principles like eat a whole foods diet, you know, lots of veggies, things like that. But yeah, there's no one specific diet for endo. It's really what works for you. And so that's really what I would say. Yeah, when it comes to diet. And also it's about progress, not perfection. So, you know, I mean, I have patients who sort of message me and they're like, oh my God, I like slipped up and I ate a donut kind of thing. And they're just absolutely devastated and so upset with themselves. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're just creating more stress for yourself. Like, if that happens, it's okay. Like, just move on and just, you know, it's how you eat 90% of the time that's actually going to make a huge difference. Yeah. So, you know, don't be too hard on yourself about it. Just try and implement healthy habits. Yeah, is what I'd say.
I think that's really good advice. And yeah, you know, you only live once. So if you have a donut or a piece of cake, as long as you're not doing it every day, it's okay. Like,
yeah,
live your life.
Yeah, try and maybe if gluten's a problem for you, try and find a gluten-free
right.
donut.
Yeah. Yes, I fully agree with that one. Or else you will definitely probably have endo belly that night.
Yeah.
That is no fun for anyone. Well,
no.
This has been really, really helpful. If people are listening and they want to find you, how can we find you?
Yeah, okay. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me just under my name, Meredith East Powell. So at Meredith East Powell. It's a bit of a long name. Sorry about that. So you can find me there. And also I'm just about to launch my new website. So my old website was The Healing Yogi, and it's now going to be just under my name. So mereditheastpowell.com. So by the end of this week, so it'll launch, probably around the 8th of May, I'd say it'll be ready. So mereditheastpowell.com.
Okay. Congratulations. Yeah. That's really exciting. Well, because I won't have this out in a week because I have some episodes kind of banking up in front of you in quarantine. Well, I'll link your new website as soon as it's ready. Let me know, and I'll link it in the show notes so everybody can see it.
The other thing I'll say as well is I have a free endometriosis ebook people can download from my website. So it's like a 7-day meal plan, and it just kind of gives people an idea of where to start. And, you know, and it's like, they're all like gluten-free. It's mostly egg-free, mostly dairy-free. So it's kind of, you know, good for a lot of people, I think. So
wonderful. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That will be so helpful for everyone who's listening. And I'm sure they will really appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, great. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight and helpful information and sharing your journey with us, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. So, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.